Don't mistake my politeness for weakness on protecting our economy and our coast.
Pipelines. Canadians, the vast majority of Canadians want some pipelines. We want to be prosperous again. David Eby, he doesn't want any pipelines. He'd rather see this entire country burn. Mark Carney's on David Eby's team. Danielle Smith has positioned herself that if she doesn't get her pipeline, Alberta is leaving this country. We're going to take a look at David Eby's unhinged rant about pipelines, saying that he needs to protect the coast at all costs. And if this pipeline has no proponent, nobody wants to invest in it, Danielle Smith already knows what David Eby's saying and has gotten ahead of it. This is a high stakes game and we're just getting started. Pierre Poilievre, he comes in with his stance, and Mark Carney, is he going to throw his book of values down the toilet and move away from his lifelong work in order to keep Alberta in Canada? Let's get into this report.
I would say this, that, if we had been able to redraw the map at the founding of Alberta, maybe we would have drawn it with a little bit of British Columbia so that we had a port. Maybe Port of Prince Rupert would have been part of Alberta as opposed to part of British Columbia. But we didn't have the luxury of doing that. Instead, to make sure that we were a country, we built the Trans-Canada Railroad, we built the Trans-Canada Highway. We've partnered with British Columbia to ensure that their natural gas can make it through Alberta, through a pipeline to get to the U.S. market. And we've wanted to make sure that all of the goods that come into British Columbia, into their ports, have free entry and free access through Alberta. That's the deal that we have. I think that coastal provinces have a special obligation to be generous in making sure that we're creating access to ports for all of our products. I know that Alberta shares that view. I have not publicly opposed any project that has been proposed by any of my premierial counterparts. I'm very supportive of any of their aspirations, and we're going to make sure that we can find areas of common ground. I would say about this project in particular, it was approved. It was going to go ahead, and yet a political decision canceled it. So this was a shovel-ready project some 10 years ago, and now it's a matter of seeing, with the technical changes, with some of the advancement technology, with some of the things that we know about building to the coast, with some of the new expectations about Indigenous equity ownership. Now we're going to see if we can revitalize that and maybe have a shortcut, because it was ready to go just a short time ago. So I will continue, as I said, to work to build the coalition of partners who are going to be on board with this. But this is a Canada project, and this is a test of whether Canada works as a country. Because if we can't build with collaboration of the federal government and between provinces, if it's everybody gets to get their products going to market except Alberta, that's not a country. A country is one where we support each other. And I think Canadians are there, and I hope that we can get more and more politicians to get there too.
Things are heating up because David Eby doesn't see eye to eye with Danielle Smith. He believes that her mission to get a pipeline to the coast is putting in jeopardy all of the projects that are already pre-approved in BC. He rather see windmills, electrical lines, and no prosperity for Canada. That's his plan for this country. You are not going to believe David Eby's rant. Let's go.
I know one of the things you learn in grade 5 is about being good to your neighbor. Your neighbor in Alberta, Premier Danielle Smith, is expected this afternoon to announce they are starting a Crown corporation to be the proponent for a new pipeline. In your estimation, what does the province of Alberta now need to do to engage with British Columbia around moving oil through our province to the coast near Prince Rupert?
Well, I guess it's neighborly relations are crucial between Alberta and British Columbia. And that's a relationship that needs to go both ways. British Columbia has literally tens of billions of dollars of real private sector shovel-ready projects that are going to drive forward not just our economy here in BC, but the national economy at a time that the national economy is under direct threat and attack by Donald Trump. The problem that we have is that Premier Smith continues to advance a project that is entirely taxpayer funded, has no private sector proponent, is not a real project, and is incredibly alarming to British Columbians, including First Nations along the coast, whose support is required for the success of the billions of dollars in real projects that I'm talking about. We need a major projects office at the federal level, not a major distractions office, not a major politics office, but an office that advances real shovel-ready projects that will move this economy forward in British Columbia and nationally. And what I am seeing from Alberta directly threatens that. So I am all for working closely with Alberta on electrical intertie that's going to drive down electrical rates for Alberta consumers. On the hydrogen sector, that is, we both need the federal government to assist us with getting hydrogen to market to build that economy. On other major infrastructure projects and projects that have real private sector backing that aren't entirely taxpayer-funded wedge politics. And that's my commitment to Albertans and to Canadians. We'll do that work with them, but it cannot be at the expense of major projects in British Columbia that are ready to go.
David Eby is willing to take down Canada if he had the chance, but a good thing it's not up to him. It's up to Mark Carney. Is he going to throw away his book of values and approve a pipeline from Alberta to the BC coast? All he has to do is get out of the way, remove the tanker ban, remove the emissions cap, make it happen. That's all that has to happen. David Eby could talk all he wants, but he's not on Team Canada. He's not on Team Prosperity. He is willing to take down this country in order to get to a fantasy, net zero fantasy, electrical lines. That's what he wants, a bunch of electricity. Danielle Smith is ready. She's putting forward this project as a project of national interest and says, yeah, we're going to have investors. We're also going to put money up front. We're going to deal with the Indigenous. We're moving forward with this project if David Eby likes it or not. And if Mark Carney does not play ball, she's got the wild card, which is next year. Is Alberta going to decide to vote to separate from Canada? Because if Mark Carney and David Eby don't play ball, yeah, there's an exit plan.
That's a quick question because I know you got a jet. The plan is to submit something to the Major Projects Office by the spring of next year. This is beyond when you were hoping to have movement on the laws, which was last month now. It was by the middle of September. You're hoping to see some change. So how quickly from the spring of 2026 do you expect to have an answer from the federal government and a sense of whether it's yay or nay?
Well, I would hope that I'd have a preliminary answer very soon. I mean, I want this to be on the project list by November. We have some work that we need to do to make sure that we scope it out and understand what the route would be, what the endpoint would be. And that is going to just take a little bit of technical work. But we should have a pretty good indication about whether there's a yes or a no. And I have to say, I don't know what the consequences of no might be. If everyone else is allowed to build projects except Alberta, then that's a real problem. Then we're not acting like a country. I have supported every premier in every one of their aspirations and their desire to continue to expand their economy on all fronts. I think Alberta just wants a little bit of support from our fellow premiers, because I think we already have it from Canadians. In our polling that we've seen, 75% of Canadians believe that we need to build more pipelines, get our product to market. So I feel like we've got the people on our side, and we just have to maybe do a little bit more work to get some of the politicians on our side. But this is the right decision. This would be the right pathway. This is what Canada needs, and it's what our province needs.
Danielle Smith says she doesn't know what's going to happen. We all know what's going to happen. If there is no pipeline on the North Coast, Albertans are going to be voting to exit this country. And Danielle Smith is going to make sure of it. She's putting up $14 million to get the ball rolling, and the ball is going to be in Mark Carney's court. There's no stopping this.
Is $14 million the max that your government will invest of taxpayer money?
I hope so. But as I've said, we will
but you're
also
not ruling it out.
be prepared. Well, I'll tell you why. It's because we have a facility called the Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation, where we have the ability to underwrite up to $3 billion in loan guarantees so that Indigenous nations are able to take an equity stake. So that gives you an idea of how serious we are about underwriting these kinds of projects. We've already done that with $750 million worth of projects, including pipeline projects, that are going to deliver $1.3 billion worth of revenue to 43 of our 44 nations. So we've already put our money where our mouth is, and we're prepared to do more of that. The federal government also has a similar type of program, and we're hoping to be able to partner with them on that. I think that that's the appropriate way for governments to intervene, is to make sure that Indigenous equity stakes can be purchased and that they can get the long-term benefit from it.
But just to be clear, like, that's loans. I'm saying, like, right now you're putting $14 million in to get this process going. Are you going to put $5 billion in to get it built? That's the question.
Well, look, we have to find out what it's going to cost to build. I've been told that it could be anywhere from $20 to $30 billion. And no, Alberta doesn't have the money to build $20 or $30 billion. We need a private sector proponent. The way we get a private sector proponent is we work with the federal government so that there's an answer that's going to be yes at the end of this process. And I am very confident when we get to that point that the private sector will come in. It's going to be up to Prime Minister Carney whether or not he wants to work with us on being able to advance these kinds of projects or not, whether what he campaigned on in being a leader in the G7 and being an energy superpower on conventional and new energy is real. And so we will see. We'll know in pretty short order because I'll be meeting with him and we'll be continuing to do the technical work. And I would hope that the answer is yes.
Let's go back to David Eby. He says that the kind of economy we're trying to build, well, take a look. This is unreal, Canada.
Next, we'll head to the phone lines with Justine Hunter from the Globe and Mail. Go ahead, Justine.
Hi, thanks. Premier, I think we continue to ask you questions about the pipeline because you have in the past kind of given a range of answers that indicate that you might be willing to entertain an oil pipeline. So let me try again. You keep saying this is not a real project, but Alberta is filing an application. Will BC oppose that application, or will it be leaving that up to First Nations to oppose?
Well, Justine, I disagree with the premise of your question. We have supported the tanker ban from the very beginning because it is foundational to our ability to get some major projects done, including at the Port of Prince Rupert, including major export projects like LNG Canada that have facilitated a 4% increase in Canadian GDP. And to put that tanker ban at threat, it's not just a threat to our pristine coast that so many British Columbians, including myself, value, but it is a direct economic threat to the kind of economy that we're trying to build in the country here. And so when I've said, let's cross that bridge when we come to it, we'll see what the Premier comes up with, I'm being polite. I am being polite. There is no project. There is no bridge to cross unless the Albertan government and the federal Canadian government are committing billions of taxpayer dollars to build this project. And if that is the plan, then they should be transparent about it. Don't mistake my politeness for weakness on protecting our economy and our coast.
How much money is Mark Carney paying David Eby or China? Like, what is going on in this country? David Eby is not on Team Canada. Every province, including everybody in Canada, needs to prosper. Under David Eby, he's willing to risk it all, get those power lines going. Now let's take a look at Pierre Poilievre.
British Columbians support pipelines, overwhelmingly. Yes, British Columbians want pipelines built. It's Liberals that are standing in the way. Liberals are blocking pipelines. The only thing standing between a pipeline that starts in Hardisty, Alberta, and ends in the northwest BC coast is Mark Carney and the Liberals. It's the Liberal shipping ban that blocks shipping of oil off the west coast. It's the Liberal pipeline ban and C-69. It's the Liberal production cap that bans the industry from producing enough oil to put in the pipe. So when the federal government bans Albertans from producing enough oil to put in the pipe, and then bans British Columbians from shipping it out of the pipe, then obviously no private industry is going to want to build such a pipe. If Mark Carney and the Liberals were to do what I say, get out of the way, then we could get a pipeline that would create jobs for British Columbia steel workers Indigenous people all across northwestern BC and across the beautiful prairies of our country. This is an incredible opportunity. I hope that it's a pipeline that ships 1 million barrels a day. All we need is for Mark Carney to get out of the way. Thank you. All right, guys.
So, blaming the federal Liberals essentially for especially the tanker ban, because that is what prevents the oil being shipped the way that Alberta and others would like. That said, we heard from David Eby before, this is where the federal government is going to have a difficult balancing act because if there's a proponent, and that proponent seems to be the government of Alberta, but BC still wants that tanker ban. What does the federal government do? And that does go to what Danielle Smith said about Canada working as a country.
Things are heating up. Is Mark Carney going to deliver and get Alberta oil to the coast? David Eby will stop at nothing to make sure that there's no oil going to the coast. He wants to continue with this tanker ban. He doesn't want Canada's prosperity. Who's going to actually win in this? Danielle Smith is setting things up for Alberta to leave Canada. Check this out.
What we're talking about tonight is Ottawa over... Do you want to hear the answer? Ottawa overtaxing us. I mentioned that at the beginning of the evening, that our program costs are 70% of all tax dollars. We only collect 40%. Ottawa collects 60%, and then they use political means to transfer it. Alberta, year after year, has $20 to $25 billion that is siphoned out of our system to go to Ottawa so that it can be spent mostly in Quebec, but also in other places that vote Liberal. We have been watching this for years. $600 billion in the last 40 or 50 years that have been taken out of this province. You don't think we might be able to do a little bit more on social spending if those $20 to $25 billion stayed here? You don't think we'd be able to cut taxes a bit if those $20 to $25 billion stayed here? It is $5,000 per Albertan that every single year gets transferred out of this province for political reasons so that the Liberals can continue to spend it in places that vote Liberal. That is what is happening in the province and in the country.
Thank you. And if Danielle Smith continues to point out the obvious, do you think Albertans are going to vote to exit Canada, or are they going to sit there and allow their resources to be locked in forever under Mr. Net Zero and David Eby? And here it is, Canada. Here's Pierre Poilievre today that says it's all on Mark Carney.
Mark Carney really only has to do one thing. I think it's a litmus test for Mark Carney. There was a lot of grandiose promises by Mr. Carney during the election that he would build, baby, build faster than you'd ever imagined we could build. So when is this building going to happen? Here we are, 6 months after he took office, and the new Liberal government looks an awful lot like the old Liberal government. The last 6 months looks an awful lot like the last 10 years, where they block, baby, block. So there's only one person who will decide if this pipeline gets built, and it's Mark Carney. So I would encourage you all to ignore provincial politicians who have no authority in this matter. Like this, the reality is the federal government has the full authority over interprovincial pipelines. So there's one man who stands in the way of this pipeline getting built. It's Mark Carney. If the Liberals want it built, they will immediately repeal the tanker ban so the pipe can fill a ship that goes abroad, the production cap so that our producers can make enough oil to go in the pipe, and C-69 so that the pipe can get rapidly approved. Mark Carney really only has to do one thing. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. I will note there is some good news, followed by bad news. Canadian pipeline companies are building pipelines. That's the good news. Terrible news. They're building them in the United States of America without taxpayer support. Enbridge is building 2 pipelines right now in the U.S. without taxpayer money. TransCanada Pipelines is building $8.5 billion of brand new projects in the United States without taxpayer money. But here in Canada, Mark Carney is in the way. So my message to Mark Carney, get out of the way so that Canadians can get building a pipeline. That's the way we send our resources to 2.5 billion Asian customers, so we're no longer reliant on the Americans for all of our exports.
Will Canadians sit here and allow Mark Carney to lock up all our natural resources and put us in the worst financial position ever, create the most amount of debt, subsidizing all the businesses that are crumbling right now because of Donald Trump's tariffs? Or will he unlock and unleash our prosperity to the world and sell our natural resources? Alberta independence is on the line. If Mark Carney blocks Alberta from prosperity, this country is going to break. I'll see you on the next report.